So here's the thing. If you can't describe your film idea within 2 sentences, then you're going to have a real hard time convincing anybody that it's a great idea. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to create a logline that can convince a producer to work with you on your movie. Now you might be thinking, well, I don't need a producer. I'm going to make this thing all on my own. While it's nice to think you can make a movie on your own, a movie is a collaborative effort, and a producer is going to help you make your dream a reality. Now, I say the word producer, I might be talking about a professional producer. I might just be talking about someone who's a friend of yours who's decided to get in on this movie project with you. Either way, you still have to convince them to give up their time and energy to work with you. And the best way to do that is to be able to deliver a concise and gripping description of your movie within 2 sentences. And there's a name for this kind of description. It's known as a logline. So getting down to basics, a logline is a very brief description of your movie that manages to hook in your audience and makes them want to find out more. And it does this by describing the central conflict within your story. And in this video, we're going to write one together. You're not going to need much to be able to do this. A pen and a piece of paper will do just fine. I'm going to use a pen and some post-it notes just because I love post-it notes. This video is not sponsored by post-it notes. Now, there are 6 things that every truly effective logline needs to have to be gripping and head-turning. These 6 things are, number 1 is to describe your protagonist or main character. And by description, I don't mean by name, but I mean by what it is they are, or how you would describe them as a person. They might be easily described by their age, their social standing, or maybe even their job. Number 2 is the inciting incident. The inciting incident within your movie is the thing that makes it an idea worth filming. If it's just a regular humdrum day, well, that's kind of boring. No audience wants to see that. But if it's the kind of day where you open up an envelope and realise you've won £1 million, well, that's film worthy. That's an inciting incident. Number 3 is the consequence of that inciting incident. If something happens to change your regular life, then how so? Number 4, the physical action that your main character is now going to have to take in order to rectify the consequences of the inciting incident. The key word in this is physical action, because although there may be certain psychological or even emotional issues that occur from this, physical action is something that can be very quickly imagined and visualized by the person that you are pitching your logline to. Number 5, you want to describe the antagonist or the obstacle within your movie. This could be some kind of villainous character, but on the other side, it could be something else entirely, like a mountain or a tornado. And number 6, you should describe the stakes should your main character fail in their objective. And this one is probably the most important of the lot, because it's this risk that your character is going to take that is going to want people to know whether or not they achieve their goal. So now you've got all your labels laid out, now's the time to really start thinking about that movie idea you want to make next. And if you don't currently have a film idea, you can do what I'm going to do, which is pick a classic film as an example to break down in order to make a really decent logline out of. I'm going to choose Back to the Future. So thinking about the main character in my example, we've got Marty McFly, but again, we don't want to use his name. So to describe him, I would think about the things that I know about him from the beginning of the movie. One thing, he's a teenager. Secondly, he likes to play guitar, electric guitar. He likes to ride around on his skateboard, holding onto the backs of trucks. But he likes to live a little bit dangerously. And he's also showing up late for school. People don't take him seriously, but he looks like he's trying to stick out. He wants to be something that people notice. I would say he's a little bit unruly, but I don't like the term unruly, so I'm going to change it up, do a little quick Google search for other words with the same meaning. And what have I found? Rebellious. And so Marty McFly, in my logline, he'll be described as a rebellious teenager. So when it comes to an inciting incident, something that makes Marty McFly's day different to all his other days, pretty easy. He travels back in time. But I am going to make this slightly more interesting by revealing that he accidentally travels back in time. He doesn't mean to go there, but that's where he ends up. And that leads us into the consequence of our inciting incident. And in this case, Marty McFly accidentally stops his parents from meeting for the first time and falling in love. So what physical action can our rebellious teenager take to rectify this situation? Well, he decides that he has to get his parents together somehow. He tries to make friends with his father. He tries to deflect all the romantic intentions that his mum now has for him. Did we mention how screwed up Back to the Future is as a story? And whilst that's all interesting, it's still too much to pack into our 2 sentences. What I need here is a nice descriptive element that's going to give us a good idea of what it is he has to do. I played around with a term I wanted to use here, including things like reunite them, get them back together, and actually the one I settled on was play Cupid. Why do I like this? Well, because it tells you something about the good-natured humour, even if it is a little bit dark, of this movie. And as a side note, it's always quite helpful if you can make this logline pitch have some sort of irony about it. So in the case of Back to the Future, Marty is this cool, rebellious teenager, but ends up finding himself meeting his parents when they were teenagers and also having to play Cupid, which doesn't sound like a particularly cool thing to do at all. Now, this might not be strict irony in the most definitive definition of the word, but as long as you're dealing with an idea that has 2 kind of conflicting notions that have to come together in order to make something work, then you know you've got the inkling of a good idea at hand. So now let's look at the antagonist, or the obstacle that Marty has to overcome. Now, some would say actually the antagonist of Back to the Future is Biff, the school bully who also has eyes on Marty's mum. And whilst he does represent a physical, villainous figure within the movie, he's not the overall bad guy of the piece. He's more of just a nuisance that Marty has to overcome in order to get his parents together. So to my mind, the real obstacle is how is Marty going to get his parents to fall in love? So what are the stakes should Marty fail to achieve this goal? Well, I guess ultimately this film and its goal is about getting Marty back to the future, because that's why it's titled that. However, the technical aspect of him getting back, that's kind of down to his pal Doc Brown. Marty really needs to focus on that reuniting with his parents, because if he can't get them back together, if he can't make them fall in love, then there won't be a future for him to go back to, because he'll cease to exist. And that's the real stakes should he fail. So now, having an overview of all the details within my story and how they check these different points, I've come up with a logline that sounds like this. When a rebellious teen accidentally travels back in time, he inadvertently stops his parents from falling in love. Now, before he can go back, he must play Cupid and reunite his parents before he is erased from existence. Now, just so you know, this wasn't actually my first attempt. My first attempt read a little bit like this. A teen travels back in time and accidentally stops his parents from falling in love. He needs to get them back together or he'll never be born. And the reason I'm showing you this one too is because it's okay to start with something that's not brilliant. It's okay to start with something that's a little bit loose, and then what you want to do is try and work in those more exciting, dramatic phrases and words. And the best thing about this entire process is that you don't need to be a great writer to structure a decent, gripping, head-turning logline. And now, for the first time, I'm going to actually look at what the logline for Back to the Future is and see how it compares to my own. So this is the Google logline. Marty travels back in time using an eccentric scientist's time machine. However, he must make his high school-aged parents fall in love in order to return to the present. Who's Marty? I don't like it. I actually prefer mine. Let's see what IMDb has to say. Marty McFly, a 17-year-old high school student, is accidentally sent 30 years into the past in a time-travelling DeLorean invented by his close friend and scientist, Doc Brown. That's just factual. That doesn't tell me anything else. There must be a better one. Oh, Screenwriting Masterclass has got one. Okay, here we go. A young man is transported to the past where he must reunite his parents before he and his future cease to exist. That's pretty good. That's not bad. That's a little shorter than mine as well. So if you found this video useful, hit that like button. If you want more videos like this, hit that subscribe button too. And if you've created your own logline pitches from this process, tell me about them in the comments below. I would love to hear about your movie ideas. And once you've created that jaw-dropping, head-turning logline, then you're going to need to find a producer to actually pitch it to. And if you click on this video here, it's going to tell you exactly where you can find a producer from. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching, filmmaker.